newspaper. My question on the abuse of the migrant workers. Two forms of abuse. One is from the destination countries, what you have just described, that there was like slavery. So it is very difficult to make accountable the destination countries because they are very, very powerful. And if you go for tough action, then they will stop recruiting from Bangladesh. They will go elsewhere. So it's a very difficult thing. And another thing is the routes. You've seen the human trafficking routes. Many countries are involved in the Thailand or Europe or other countries where they use for trafficking. So these two types of abuse. Do you think that it is because of the lack of the legally mandatory documents, international documents, is one of the main reasons to curb this type of abuse? There is no legally binding documents to make accountable those countries who need to cooperate each other.
Thanks for the questions. Thanks, journalists before. Well, of course, there is this issue of that the bilateral relationship not always ensures that the country of origin can. First, that we special rapporteurs are not agencies of the United Nations, but are appointed on other individual capacities. So,
expert.
Right. So we don't. We have small teams specialized on the topics and don't have a large number of employees that will stay in the different countries. So when you ask about the role of the UN, I will leave that for the UN agencies really, which may be, it will depend on the country, IOM, UNHCR, UNDP, and so forth. And of course, it is very important that they take a significant role on this matter. Now, I wouldn't call it, maybe this because I'm a lawyer, but I wouldn't call it mediation really. I think because mediation looks like we have to solve a conflict between two parties. And here there are obligations of states. Obligation of the countries of destination to prevent, investigate, and sanction the violation of human rights and the killings when the deaths are in fact killings. I stress that the role of the special rapporteurs is different from the one of the UN agencies. In our case, and in my case related to migrants, it is to monitor the behavior of states, and in this case, to what extent the countries of destination are really conducting these investigations. So that's the role for special rapporteurs, really, because we are focused on human rights. So that's the key point. Now, on the other aspect of your question, I think there isn't enough data on this matter. I mean, how the death, what were the causes of the death? The figures, the number of the deaths, yes, as you said, there are many, but we don't know for sure whether they were caused by accidents or by mistreatment or killings or what matter. So I think it's very important to move forward to combat this impunity. In the press release, it is indispensable that the government strengthens the consular services in the countries of destination, particularly in the Middle East, where there are most migrant workers and also women migrants from Bangladesh in the domestic service. So I recognize that the government has made efforts in this regard, but those efforts should be enhanced to make sure that the provision of consular services is adequate. At the same time, this is also the responsibility for the countries of destination, as I mentioned before. With deaths connected to a World Cup, Well, the situation in Qatar have been addressed by my mandate, my office, on other occasions, and we have sent a number of communications to Qatar. This is, of course, not the matter at stake here to assess the behavior of Qatar in a specific manner, but as I pointed out in the press release, as a general matter, the Middle East countries, which are the main countries of destination of Bangladeshi, should investigate and investigate and sanction all the human rights violations, particularly deaths that have occurred in many cases. And we met here persons whose parents, whose relatives have died abroad, and according to the figures, it's not entirely clear in each and every case how the deaths occurred. So it's indispensable that the countries of destination conduct thorough investigations. The countries of destination conduct thorough investigations of the killings or the deaths. And concerning the Rohingya, it is true that there are security concerns. I think it is a tremendous challenge to address the situation of almost 1 million people living in that overcrowding conditions, and it's very important to enhance the coordination between the UN agencies and the government in this regard. And I think it's very important to have advanced in terms of having other different type of initiatives for the Rohingya there, including the provision of training of different skills to improve their education so as they can have more normal lives as far as the conditions of the environment allows it, of course. Concern about the protracted nature of the situation of Rohingya in Cox's Bazar, and the fact that in the absence of a sustainable long-term plan, most of them fully rely on humanitarian assistance. And then I make reference, as I did in the press release, regarding the lack of official birth certificates and so forth. I also refer to the issue of housing in the camps, the parents for those who are becoming victims of trafficking, and so forth. And finally, the desperate situation of Rohingyas have also seen many of them leaving Bangladesh for other countries through irregular channels. These dangerous boat journeys they undertake have resulted in a number of deaths at sea. And on the other hand, Rohingyas leaving Myanmar to journey to Bangladesh are also being pushed back. Stronger measures, including a coordinated regional approach, are critical to protect the migrants, the Rohingya refugees in these situations. Thank you very much, and now we are going to take some questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Morales, for your statement. Dear media friends, we are taking...
The lack of investigation and prosecution of the vast majority of human rights abuses in countries of destination is also very concerning, and countries of destination should conduct a permanent and thorough monitoring. On the issue of return of migrants, there are various challenges of migrants. As part of my mandate as the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Human Rights of Migrants, I conduct visits to different countries around the world to monitor the situation of their rights and present reports to the Human Rights Council in Geneva to ensure that there is an enhancement in the protection of the rights of migrants. I will start by reading the press release that is going to be shared with you. And the press release includes a link to a longer document, which is the end of mission statement, which develops in more detail the findings of this visit. I'm reading now the news release. Bangladesh must boost regulation of migrant recruitment. UN expert. Dhaka, 31st January 2023. Bangladesh must step up efforts to strengthen regulation of the migrant recruitment system to protect migrant workers against exploitation and abuses. Recruitment currently imposes exorbitant high costs on many migrants, creating debt bondage, much of which are imposed by middlemen. I urge authorities to protect the rights of migrant workers at all stages of migration, including pre-departure, during employment abroad, and upon their return. I commend the government for actions taken to curb these challenges, but there is still a need to regulate, closely monitor, and enhance the recruitment system to ensure effective protection for migrants, including better access to justice. I note in my visit and meetings the stark difference in skilled migration schemes channeled through government-to-government initiatives, which yield more beneficial results for migrants due to more robust regulation and oversight. It is the lower skilled migrants who are often subject to vulnerable situations, including exploitation, as they are often poor, lack education, and without access to information that can help inform their decisions and enhance their migration experiences. I encourage ongoing training initiatives for aspiring migrant workers, but stress the need to better equip them with adequate information prior to departure, including recourse when they suffer abuse. I welcome the establishment of a database of aspiring migrant workers, as well as better regulation of middlemen, including requirement for registration. I also emphasize the responsibility for migrant workers equally falls on countries of destination. Countries of destination must do their part in ensuring strong protection for migrant workers, particularly women who are disproportionately at risk of human rights violations when they are hired as domestic workers. Destination countries, most of them in the Middle East, must also take an active role in investigating and sanctioning perpetrators of human rights violations against Bangladeshi migrant workers. At the same time, Bangladesh should continue reinforcing its consular services. During my visit, I traveled to Cox's Bazar to meet with Rohingya refugees. I praised Bangladesh for receiving nearly 1 million Rohingyas escaping from Myanmar, and I was impressed by the resilience of the Rohingya refugees, some of whom have been living in camps for over 5 years and others 30 years since first arrivals in the early 1990s. A durable solution for all Rohingya refugees is critical. I express concern about the lack of legal status for Rohingyas and note that children who are born in the camps that I visited are not issued an official birth certificate. I also call on the authorities to facilitate